we were at the time, at the point when the war preparations were going on. War having become a certainty, both camps were lining up, marshalling up the resources, trying to get all the various kings to join them as is possible. And one of them amongst them all was one factor, which was Krishna, whom both of them were trying to woo. Krishna was actually, if you know, related to Arjun through his sister. Krishna's sister, Subhadra, was married to uh, Arjun. But Krishna was also related to Duryodhan. And Krishna's son Samba was married to Duryodhan's daughter. So the relationship in both cases were very, very close. And both of them desired to have his army, or at least they desired to have him, not only his army. They would have preferred him along with his army. So both of them went there, and he was sleeping in such a manner that when he opened his eyes, he found Arjun sitting at his feet. So, and he asked Arjun, "How come you are here?" So meanwhile, Duryodhan who was there, he also immediately chirped in that I also come for the same purpose. We want your assistance. He said, all right, whoever wants my assistance, then both of you want my assistance. What I'll do is, since I can't bifurcate my army, I'll give one of you the entire army, and the other I shall offer my own services, but I will not take any active part in the war. So, and since Arjun has, I saw Arjun first. So Arjun will get the first option to select whatever he wants. As luck would have it, Arjun opted for Krishna, whereas and Duryodhan was very happy because Duryodhan wanted his Narayani army, which had been undefeated till now. So both of them went back very satisfied. Now, what went on in Arjun's mind is anybody's guess, but it is presumed that Arjun, being a very good fighter and capable of taking care of all the entire army opposing him, he was not really interested in any further assistance by way of army. What he preferred, and but this is all our surmise. Like I said, we don't know what went on in his mind. But what he preferred is that somebody who would be sitting beside him and who will be, who will not be affected by the heat of the war that's going on, and therefore would be able to see everything objectively and assist Arjun by pointing out what the various options or the obstacles, etc. Secondly, in Krishna, he could get a charioteer whereby uh, who would take him to most appropriate place from where he can command the entire view, and also place his chariot in such a manner where when he is opposing the enemy, it becomes very convenient. So from these considerations, most probably he chose Krishna. But and in any case, as we know, ever since Krishna walked into the life of the Pandavas from the time of Draupadi's Swayamvar to till date, the Pandavas always relied upon Krishna's advice, and they held him in high esteem. Duryodhana, on the other hand, did not need any assistance from Krishna personally, because he relied upon his uncle Shakuni. So both of them were quite satisfied with their whatever they got from Krishna. Now, a big advantage with Krishna was that he could foresee a lot of things uh, which uh, uh, which the Pandavas and normal human beings would not be able to see. If you recall, just before they went, when Krishna had proposed to go there, uh, or rather just before Krishna proposed to go there, go to Hastinapur on a peace mission, and Bhim and Arjun, they were very angry. And Bhim said that it's now time to call up all these bluff and really take Duryodhan and all the others to task and kill them. Arjun also added, yes, it's high time that we kill Karna also. It was at that time Krishna said, don't be in sure about it, because you have no idea of the power of Duryodhan, of the power of Bhishma and Dronacharya. Now, in the Kaurava camp, there were three important uh, warriors whom virtually it was impossible for even Arjun to kill. One was Bhishma, second one was Dronacharya, and third one was Karna. The reason being that all three were trained by Lord, they were the disciples of Lord Parshuram. And अपने आप कहा जाता है, it is said that a guru cannot be defeated by a disciple. We have seen that in case of Bhishma and Lord Parshuram when they were fighting after Amba campaign to Parshuram. But even though Parshuram could not defeat Bhishma, Bhishma couldn't get the better of Parshuram also. And it is अपना ये भी माना जाता है in our this thing that a Guru Bhai of your Guru is also of the same stature and the same power as your Guru. So Krishna saw so that Bhishma and Karna, who are both Dronacharya's Guru Bhai, they are also of the same stature, and it would be impossible for Arjun to be able to beat them. Now, what is the meaning of okay, Arjun to beat them? Before I come into the metaphor portion of it, as per the story, now we know that one big advantage with why he could not be beaten was because Bhishma had a boon of death at will from from his father. As far as uh, as far as Dronacharya was concerned, if you recall uh, that milk incident where some of his friends gave mixed some white powder and gave it to this thing in water, stirred it, and gave it to Ashwatthama and told him to drink it for milk. So he was very happy that he had taken milk that day. But his mother, Kripi, was very upset. She said, "My son is gullible, and you have to do something about it. So why don't you go to first of all to Drupad and get some alms which he is obliged to give you." So that's how he had gone there. But the mistake which he made was, sorry, excuse me, the mistake he made there was that when a Brahmin goes there, he does not, unless he's gone for Bhiksha, then he'll say, of course, Bhikshan. On the other hand, when he goes for Dan, he does not say, I've come to collect Dan, because Dan is not generally used for his own purpose. Some little bit may be given to him for his personal use also. But by and large, Dan is given to for other purposes. And in that case, the Brahmin who goes there, he merely has it announced that the Brahmins come at your door. And naturally, out of whenever a Brahmin comes to your door, you give him some dan. We'll come to that little later. So this man, Bhishma, could not be defeated for that reason. And as far as Dronacharya was concerned, because his son was gullible, on his mother's request, uh, he he said that he will take care of uh, 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 his son Ashwatthama throughout his life. Now, this was a very bold statement because Ashwatthama had the boon of death of the immortality from Brahma. Ashwatthama had the boon of immortality from Brahma, and as such, he could never have been killed. But he was gullible, and so it was feared by his mother, Kripi. Kripi, incidentally, is the sister of Kripa Acharya. And they're both of them, they're twins, brothers and sisters, the children of Shraddhavan. I've done all that earlier, but I'm just quickly recapitulating so that we understand what is all this about. So Dronacharya also, since he said that he'll be uh, all the time being present and he'll watch over his son. So his son had become his center of focus. In case of Karn, he had been given that kavach by his son at birth, by his father, so Lord Surya at birth. And that kavach was a golden kavach, which could not be just pierced by or destroyed by anybody. Accordingly, these three warriors were impossible to be killed by Arjun. What is the meaning of Arjun being unable to kill? Now, Arjun had got 10 names. Each of these 10 names denote a certain property. For example, uh, one of his names was Shvetwahana, which means he had all his thoughts were pure, very pure thoughts. He had no vile or dark thoughts about anybody or any incident, etc. His another name was Jishnu. He has not committed, he does not commit any detestable act. Another of his name was Dhananjay, always victorious, which means he had always control over his sense organs and he never let them sense organs and he never allowed them to go out of hand. He was always victorious over them. Then he was another of his name was Arjun. Arjun is from Arjun, collecting merit. He was always helpful for anybody. The least bit of call from anybody, and he'll immediately rush out, and thereby he would get their blessings and merit. In this case, you might recall that one of the Brahmins, once his cow was stolen, he came up to Arjuna and said, "My cow has been stolen. Please help me and retrieve that cow." So it was at that time he barged into the room where Yudhishthir was alone with Draupadi, and as per their understanding, Arjun had to go on exile for a year. So with all these traits, which means that with these traits, a human being will not be able to defeat either Bhisma, which is delusion, or Dronacharya, which is duality, or Karna, which is innocence. So none of these three could be defeated by Arjun. So Krishna had to work out how to get rid of them or how to eliminate them. Because unless these three were eliminated or removed, Pandavas would never be able to uh, get the better of the Kurus, Duryodhan. That is how we shall see when a little later when the war actually starts, that Bhishma, when he is unable to kill him, he is the first commander in chief, and Arjun is not able to kill him. He keeps on shooting arrows at his body, and nothing happens to him. He cannot be killed because he has got the boon of death at will. So one arrow pierces into his heart, he pierces into his lungs, pierces there, here, there, all over his torso, but nothing will happen to him. Eventually, Krishna, who was watching all this, he told Arjun, Arjun, you cannot kill Dronacharya. You remember he has got his boon of death at will. But what you can do is make him disabled. While all this was going on, the Bhishma, he kept on, shooting arrows after arrows and killing large number of people. Until now, it is not that Bhishma was he was aware of reality because he had been trained, as you know, by all the three sages, and he knew the truth. He also knew who Krishna was. So Krishna got very angry with him, and he rushed and took up a chair, one of the wheels of the broken chariot, and with that he threatened Bhishma. What is that wheel? That wheel is nothing but time. So he told, with that, the implication was that if Bhishma does not surrender of his own or does not invite his own destruction and will that he dies by such and such time, Krishna with time, which is Krishna who is the master of time, the lord of time also, he will immediately use time to make him disabled. May he become so old that he'll become disabled, and thereafter he'll be unable to fight in the war. But Bhishma immediately understood, and therefore he joined his palms together, and he sort of did not pursue the war very much. And that evening, when Yudhishthir went to pay his respects to them, he let it be known that he can be so-called killed or disabled if Shikhandi is placed before Arjun, so that uh, then Bhishma will not be able to shoot him. So that's how he disabled Krishna made the plan and disabled Bhishma. In the same manner, disabling he had to be disabled. He had to disable or eliminate Dronacharya. Dronacharya also could not be in as long as he had a weapon in his hand, he just could not be defeated. So Krishna, as we shall see, devised a plan of telling, of conveying to Dronacharya that his son Ashwatthama has been killed. Now, this was, of course, a lie, but I'm not going to detail, into detail because this will come a little further again. But with that, once he was convinced that his son has been killed, then the whole purpose of his life had disappeared. As I told you, that Dronacharya had taken it upon himself to protect his son, who was a little gullible from everybody else. And but why did this Ashwatthama, his son, decide to join Duryodhan rather than the Kaurava? Simply because Duryodhan had promised him that when he becomes the king, he will give a large kingdom to Ashwatthama. Now, even before Duryodhan could do that, Dronacharya wanted to take him away from the Duryodhan camp and get him to join the camp of the uh, Pandava. But and it was in that respect that he got Draupadi defeated. And when he was defeated and captured, he said, "Okay, southern part of the kingdom you keep, southern, the rest, the northern part I will keep." And the northern part he made his son king, in the hope that with this kingdom, Ashwatthama will no longer be hankering after Duryodhan. But nevertheless, he continued to support Duryodhan. And because he supported Duryodhan, purports Dronacharya also had to support Duryodhan. That's how Dronacharya also went into the uh, Duryodhan's camp. As far as Karna was concerned, he was always there. So how to get rid of him? And that is what the story will continue now. From here, we'll join with the book. Now, if you see, the story starts with the Karn performing his morning rituals. Karn was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and uh, and every morning, noon, and evening he would worship the sun. Every morning he would say his prayer, and then offer an oblation of fire, of water, of the Ganges water to the sun. Now, that is actually worshipping the sun. That's how he worships the sun. You must have seen several of his pictures. He's offering water to Surya, Lord Surya this way. So, what is this act of offering water? Water, as we have seen, is love. So, he's offering water. He was offering love to Lord Surya, and when he's offering Ganges water, it is love and compassion. So, love and compassion is what we offer. Uh, Whenever we worship anybody, what is worship? Worship is when we go to the temple or even at home before a picture of this or a small idol in a shrine or even otherwise. We do that arti, we sing songs, bhajan, we sing their glory, we recite their glory, and we do so many other things, offer flowers, offer tulsi leaves, offer water, offer prasad, something. These are all signs of indications of love. This is how we, uh, worship our deity through love. But there's another word called prayer. Now, in prayer, what do we do? Now, there two different things are there. One is prayer, and the other is worship. Worship is really expressing your love towards your deity or whoever. A prayer, on the other hand, is an expression of gratitude. Even without our asking, the Lord keeps on giving us everything that we need. And we have got so much more than we really need also. So as an expression of gratitude, we offer our prayer. That is the real meaning of prayer. But worship also is also in its true sense of when we worship do this arti etc. to a deity, it's only symbolic. The real uh, worship comes in the form of what Swami used to say of Narayan Seva. You see the human being, and in every human being, you see Narayan, and then you offer him whatever. So that is the real Shiva. Of course, eventually, when you consider that there's nothing other than you, that everything is you only, in that sense, when you worship or when you say a prayer, you are actually uh, recharging, or rather uh, arising this love within you, your and or the gratitude within you. You are empowering it, and because everything is other, nothing is other than you. You are the Brahman. You are everything. So that is the significance of this thing. Now, once it had been decided that the war is going on, war will go there. So since Karn was invincible with his armor, so Indra decided. Of course, it was known to Krishna. Indra decided that he will have to get rid of the Karn's armor and Kundal, and so he made a plan that one day he will go there to Karn after as he was uh, performing his morning prayers and rituals. Because at that time, after the preparation of the morning, after the completion of morning rituals, prayers and morning rituals, he would offer generous dawn to the Brahmins who happened to be there. So Lord Indra this, made up his mind to visit Karn one day in the morning and ask him for dawn and dan. And so this plan was while it was going on in his mind. Okay. Now what is dan? Dan is has been translated as charity by the Western scholars, uh, primarily Max Muller and others. But dan is not charity. Charity is a strict no-no because in charity you donate something, and donation is really demeaning to the one who receives it and the one who gives it also, both of them, because it implies that the other fellow, that the one who's receiving is to be pitied. He's a very he's a have-not, and whereas you have got a lot of things, a lot of material things, and out of which you are giving things. So charity is something which you give out of uh, what you have collected. It's something what you can spare, and that charity, when you give charity, it boosts up your ego, while it demeans the one who is receiving it. So charity, strictly speaking, is a strict no-no in our case of in spirituality. Dan, on the other hand, is different. Dan is not never asked for. Dan is given of your own. And when you give dan to a Brahmin, you actually, if you recall, even today, when you invite a Brahmin to your house to do where is Havan, etc. After the Havan is over, we give the Brahmin a certain dan. It may be clothes, it may be money, it may be whatever. And then we touch his feet and take his blessing. So that is different there. In one case, the receiver is grateful. In the other case, the giver is grateful. Because when that way, we are sharing our wealth, not only sharing our wealth, it is a duty to share our wealth. Now, this dan which is given is not given to the Brahmin per se. Through the Brahmin, it is rooted to the needy individual. The dan, if it's a big project, then the Brahmin would go and tell the patron that in certain place such and such thing is needed. On the other hand, if uh, and so when he says this is needed, and this it was necessary to point out to the benefactor, not to the patron, that this is needed, because otherwise he would give something else, or he'll give money and say, okay, build a rest house, and rest house is not really required. So many rest houses are already there, or maybe build a well. Now, for this kind of major work, he would get the patron to undertake the entire job itself. But suppose sometimes it will be a smaller amount. That small amount would be taken by the Brahmin and distributed to the needy. That needy could be a farmer whose crop has been destroyed by untimely rain, or it could be a tradesman who needs some tool, or it could be a householder whose roof has collapsed or flown off. So, who is giving what and to whom, that remains secret, and nobody uh, would come to know about it. So, Dan is really uh, distribution of wealth, an anonymous distribution of wealth into the society. So that's how the dan was given. Now, coming to the story, uh, when Indra was planning all this in his mind, uh, Lord Surya, he knew that what was going on in this Indra's mind, and he therefore uh, approached in one dream to Karn and told, because Karn was his son, he told Karn that beware, Lord Indra is planning to get you to remove, to part with your kavach and kundal. And when he comes there, you just refuse, you don't part with it. Now, when Karn got up in the morning, he recalled his dream quite well. However, very soon he forgot all about it. And so it happened that once when he was performing his morning ritual, after he had finished his ritual, suddenly he saw a Brahmin there. And the Brahmin spoke to Karn and said, O King of Kings, this Brahmin awaits your attention. So this Brahmin was none other than Lord Indra, who had taken in disguise. So he said, uh, this Brahmin awaits your attention. To Karn, Karn merely folded his hand and told that Brahmin, he said, worthy Brahmin, pray guide me. How may I honor your exalted self? So Lord Indra, who was disguised as Brahmin, said, your golden kavach and golden kundal are needed. Now, the wording is very important here. He did not say, I want. He said they are needed. The needed means the Brahmin has got no use for all this wealth for himself. Brahmin never, out of choice, he was what we call poor. He lived, his demands were very frugal, his needs were very frugal, he lived frugally, and he did not take anything for himself. His day to day needs were obtained from Bhiksha. Bhiksha, if you recall, I had earlier mentioned what is Bhiksha. Bhiksha, a Western scholar translating and not understanding our culture, they said Bhiksha was kind of begging. But a Brahmin would never beg. He was he was so-called poor materially out of choice of his own volition, rather than some destiny or some misfortune. Not that. And Brahmins were very respected members of society. So it would be an affront, an insult to the Brahmin to be told that he's begging. In fact, when Brahmins used to go house to house, and they would go a maximum 5 houses in a day and collecting bhiksha, they used to have it announced. They would announce themselves, bhikshan they, that means give sustenance, sustenance for the body. That's all that they wanted. And all the household members. I remember in 1953 in Lucknow when I used to go there from Bombay, these Brahmins used to come regularly to my grandfather's house, and these boys, they're boys mostly. Sometimes full Brahmin would also come there, but mostly it used to be these boys, 14, 15 years old. Two of them or three of them, they'd come and the moment they said Bishante, my mother and my aunt and all my other cousins who were older than me, they would rush immediately and somebody go there, hold his hand and tell these novices that kindly wait, we are getting the done for you or bhikshan for you. So that bhiksha was given to them, and it was considered a moral duty and a good and an act of dharma to be able to give that bhiksha. So bhiksha, like dan, was something that was given by the grateful society. Similarly, there's another concept of Guru Dakshina. Guru Dakshina also, like I explained earlier, that this was when we give the uh, Guru in the Gurukul, when they were passing out, then he would normally specify his Dakshina. But that Dakshina was such that it was not of any use to the Brahmin or the Guru, because first of all, He did not ask for anything material. From where would the students get, the brahmacharis or students would get anything material? They had no money with themselves, they were not earning. They were in fact living off the wealth of the society. So there's no question of any giving any gift to as a or fee. What is Western scholars have said that Guru Dakshina is fee. They could not give a fee. So what the Guru Dakshina really was only a kind of a dissertation or treatise that we submit at the time of our completion of our project, like perhaps Guru would be doing there, that kind of thing. So these three things are very different from what is there in what is understood by the Western scholar. Now, so Dan, so when eventually when Indra actually went there to um, to get his kavach and kundal, he said your kavach and kundal are needed. It was at that time that suddenly this it flashed into Karn's mind whatever the dream in which Surya had come to him and told him uh, that Lord Indra will come disguised as Brahmin and get you to part with the kavach and kundal, and you should not do that because that will render you vulnerable. Nevertheless, as far as Karna was concerned, he did not accept the advice given by his father, Lord Surya, and he told Lord Indra, that Brahmin who had come there in disguise as a disguise, that since you have expressed a need for them, it is my privilege to offer both of them to you. So he took out his hunting knife and deliberately cut off that natural armor, which was part of his body, and kept it and let his the body start bleeding all over. His body bleeding, blood means animalness, the animal trait within us. So when he removed his uh, uh, kavach, the animal trait which is there, they suddenly came on top. So that is the significance of this metaphor. Now, with that, when he took away, when he gave him this, he said, "It's my privilege to offer both the kavach and the kundal to you." Uh, Lord Indra was very impressed. He said, "There cannot be a more generous and the greater Danvir than you are. I am very pleased with you. Pray, seek a boon." So, of course, the Khan told him, "Lord, you've given me everything. What more can I ask?" So he said, "No, no, you asked a boon nevertheless." But he hesitated, and then Lord Indra, of his own accord, he gave him a weapon. He said, "Take this Shakti. The Shakti of mine is exceedingly powerful, and whoever on the battlefield you are against with, at that time, if you shoot from this thing, that Shakti will certainly find its mark and destroy whoever it is intended for." So with that, anyway, when that was given to him, he said, "You are a very noble soul, and I offer my Shakti to you. But remember, the Shakti can be used only once. More than that, it cannot be used there. And after it has been used, it will come back to me. So use it very wisely and carefully against whoever is your opponent." Of course, Indra knew that she will use it against Arjun. Nevertheless, he had taken his Kavach and Kundal. He had to give him some weapon which will also be equally powerful. Now, with that, of course, the Kavach and Kundal having been submitted, uh, Karn had made himself vulnerable to uh, uh, to being killed, and all this was really arranged by by Krishna. So that's how Krishna got rid of uh, Karn. If you recall, Krishna also tried to woo Karn, telling him that as told by his mother Kunti, that he was their son and he was rightly a Pandav, the eldest of the Pandav. And after the victory of the Pandav, he will become the rightful king. He will become the king. of Hastinapur and the whole world. But the Karna had told that time also that told Krishna that I'm not really interested in anything. For myself, I want nothing. If Yudhishthir were to give me the whole kingdom, the crown of the Hastinapur after victory, which certainly would be his, since you are on his side, I would straight away, without any hesitation, offer that crown to Duryodhan. As such, my coming there on the side of the Pandavas would not be of any use. So this thing, as we had discussed, was said earlier also. So Karna remained uh, with the Kaurava, but now onward, his kavach and kundal had been removed. What does this mean? This kavach and kundal, his innocence has been removed. Now, innocence is one of the things which is come with us with the survival package when a child is born. It is because of the child's innocence. It is protected from everybody else. Everybody finds the child, that little child, less than 4 years old, very endearing. And nobody wants to harm the child. In fact, everybody goes out of the way to protect it. And of course, the mother's love is there, which will ensure that the child is safe. But this innocence is a further protection. However, this kind of innocence, because if you are innocent, you are never guilty. And if you are never guilty, you cannot be punished. You are invincible in that sense. Now, but this child's innocence is not out of knowledge. Unlike a sage innocence, sage knows everything. He knows the repercussions. He knows what will happen if we do something else. And in spite of that, he acts out of immediate, sorry, excuse me, sage acts out of knowledge, whereas a child acts out of ignorance. Now, the difference is that a child will commit all kinds of foolishness also. As you have seen, Karn, in the case of that when Chir Haran was going on, the stripping of Draupadi, he kept on parroting whatever Duryodhan had said. Duryodhan had said, "Panch pati wali ko bula ke le aao." Call that woman with 5 husbands. Now, Karn knew that a woman who bed with more than 4 people is a prostitute, and therefore he had no hesitation in calling her a prostitute. They are indirectly, not indirectly, almost directly. He said, a woman who bed with more than four men is is an unchaste woman anyway. Similarly, when it was now all this happened because he was ignorant. Now they were all when Dushasan was when the slave who was sent to bring Draupadi, fetch Draupadi, returned back without Draupadi and said that she has asked a query. Then the Duryodhan tells Dushasan, "You go there. The slave is afraid. This slave of ours is afraid, but you don't have to be afraid of any of these four Pandavas, 5 Pandavas, because they are all our slaves now, and you can go and get them." Now, this thing that the slave, he the Karn heard about it, and immediately when she was not when she was brought there, Karn was one who said that slaves cannot be dressed in royal clothes, and they should be stripped of their signs of royalty. So, of course, as far as the Pandavas was concerned, they removed their headgear and they removed that second piece of clothing, that shawl which is slung over their shoulder, that angavastra, and they kept it on the in front of them. However, Draupadi was not dressed in. She had a single piece of clothing, not the other one, not the second piece of clothing which would cover her, the upper clothing, which would cover her torso, etc. So since she was in one piece of clothing, and he said it should be stripped, that should be removed. It was Dushasan who went and started tugging at her single piece of clothing. Now all this happened because of ignorance, and that is the child's ignorance that comes into play. when you commit this kind of foolishness. So this thing, it is very dangerous for uh, on the spiritual path to remain to have only child innocence. If you have have a sage's innocence, that's very good. But a child's innocence is very bad or very detrimental in case of spiritual path, because first of all, you'll not be held guilty, and nevertheless you can keep on creating havoc. And when you create a havoc, a certain chain reaction, a certain karma is generated. That karma is a very harmful karma to everybody around, and including the child also. So that is why, from metaphor point of view also, the this kind of innocence has to be removed, and that this innocence is removed at the age of 4, in most of the cases, or maybe 3.5 to 4 or 4.5. By this time, all the innocence of the child is disappeared, and slowly he comes into to live into the ways of the human being. But of course, after that time, that grown-up man or grown-up person or boy or a woman, whoever it is, they have to be careful because of karma. If they do good deeds, they'll be subject to good, like they call sukh or happiness. If they do uh, bad deeds or sin, then they will be subjected to dukh or unhappiness. And nevertheless, in both cases, karma is performed. If you have to get rid of karma so that you are not born at all, then you have to undertake what is called nishkam karma, which I think we had done earlier. And in case we shall do that again, I think, a little while later. So that is why it is necessary to get rid of the child innocence in every human being, because only then it's the child or the human being now without that child innocence can work towards his own liberation or more. Okay, I think we'll stop here. We have come to end.